Good afternoon, everybody. A very warm Sunday afternoon. Welcome to today's live at the waterhole in association with Africam, and we've started off with giraffe. What an absolute treat! Up at Oldonyo in Kenya, one of my personal favourite waterholes. Always seems to be something interesting, and the giraffe just love to come down and drink, which is always very, very special to see. But my name is Ben Coley. I'll be with you for the next 2 hours, and we will take our daily trip across all the different cameras that we have, and it's live and it's interactive. And we look forward to hearing all of your questions and your comments. Please do send them all through. It's always wonderful to hear from you. Always nice to know where you're from as well. Such a multicultural audience that we have, and always very special to know that we are communicating and connecting with so many people across the world. But a nice little stretch of giraffe I'm going to go with today. There are many collective nouns that are accepted for groups of giraffe, and these, of course, are Maasai giraffe, being up in Kenya, one of the different species and subspecies of giraffe that we have across the continent. Not the biggest of the giraffe, the Maasai. That is for our own giraffe down here in South Africa. The Southern African giraffe is the tallest of all the giraffe species and subspecies, but Maasai giraffe pretty numerous up in East Africa. They're a little bit smaller and smaller patches and more irregularly shaped as well. More giraffe appearing from behind the bush. We've got a young male staring at us in the middle. One on the left, definitely a female. One on the right, not 100% sure yet. Just a head of a female sticking in. We normally do use those ossicones to help us sex the giraffe, but always a good idea to remember that in young giraffe, those ossicones are a little bit difficult to distinguish. Safest way is to just look under the belly for the telltale signs of a male. Nice to see the giraffe, so many giraffes coming for a drink without being harassed by elephants, which is usually what happens to them at Oldonyo, and I'm sure if we stay here long enough, we will see them have to vacate the area as an elephant comes trundling in from the background somewhere. Little PP1, good afternoon to you as well. And yeah, what a beautiful start to see. What have we got there now? 6 giraffe all gathering around this little waterhole. Hello, Harriet Hodgkin. Nice to hear from you again. Welcoming myself, FC. I have Tadiwa in my ear today, along with all the wonderful tech people making this possible. And a happy Sunday to you as well down there in Cape Town. But definitely a happy hour for the giraffe, it seems, in Kenya. Now we see we've got a male just checking things out. Wow, look at them all. I think this is the most giraffe I've ever seen at one time clustered around Oldonyo's little watering hole here. A mirage of legs and necks. Oh, it's a slightly overzealous male as well. Wonder if his presence will perturb her. Obviously, with her having to get into the position to drink, that may leave her in a slightly vulnerable position. Does seem to be rather interested. constantly sniffing at that urine to get a better idea. Maybe she is in some sort of reproductive status. It'll be interesting to see with various males around what happens here. You can see the one on the left analysing the urine there, and another suitor coming in to check things out. Maybe if we're lucky, we'll get some necking if these two boys decide to have a little bit of a scrap over her. I don't think I've ever seen two giraffes having a full-on neck on live at the waterhole before. That would be pretty amazing to watch. The majority of them drifting away now. These two boys wondering what they said. Common problem, gents, happens in all species, don't worry. Hans, good question asking if there's a geographical reason why the giraffe groups are much bigger in Kenya. I don't think that it's a geographical reason so much. I imagine it's just because of availability of resources. Giraffes do love an acacia, and there are plenty of acacias and good food for them up in East Africa on those open plains. A lot of pioneer plants, a lot of small acacias and similar type trees to which they love. So I think it's probably just an availability of resource as opposed to a geographical thing. You could argue it may be a geological thing. The soil type up there obviously is very conducive to those small leaf plants that giraffes like to feed upon. Good afternoon, Picasso. Nice to hear from you as well. You're asking whether the ratio of male and female giraffes is still unbalanced. Picasso, if I'm honest, I was not aware that there was an imbalance. Most species have a relatively 50-50 balance between males and females. So I will have to go and have a quick look to see if have missed something there, Picasso. Thank you for that. I'll go and have a look. But I haven't heard anything about the sex ratios being particularly skewed in giraffe populations. I'm trying to think of my own personal experience. I would think I normally see sort of similar numbers, perhaps more females than males, but nothing that really springs to mind. However, you have just reminded me of something that I found out the other day, which was new to me. Nothing to do with giraffes, but to do with sex ratios in a type of fish I For the first time ever, tried some barramundi fish the other day, which I have to say was very, very pleasant indeed. And I thought I know nothing about barramundis. Ah, here comes an elephant, no doubt to clear out the remaining giraffe. So I wanted to find out a bit more about barramundi, and I don't know if this is a common thing in all fish. I have to say my fish knowledge is not wonderful. I'm not much of a fisherman. But it seems that in barramundis, especially, almost all the eggs that hatch produce young males, and all young barramundi males under the size of about 80 centimeters, or all barramundi fish under the size of about 80 centimeters are male. And they're a special type of hermaphroditic species. And once they breach that size and that age, which is normally between 3 to 5 years, then then they change into females. I don't know of any other species where it does that, but pretty much all young individuals are males, and then they only morph into females at a certain age. I thought that was rather interesting. We were trying to debate what would the benefit of that would be, as opposed to just having an equal ratio of males and females from birth. One thing we thought of, as we were having a discussion as a group, a few of us, was that perhaps it means that if you get to that size, then obviously your genetics must be relatively good for you to have survived for a few years already. So maybe that means that then by morphing into a female, you're more likely to pass on better genetics because you've got to that stage in your life. But interesting. I don't know. Say, if anybody knows of any other species where that happens, I wouldn't be surprised, having read that, if it does happen in other fish species as well. But that was news to me. But Picasso, I went very much off piste there. I will have a look and see what I can find out about giraffe sex ratios for you. And good afternoon to Raw as well, originally from Dorset, my neck of the woods, or where my parents are these days. And you now live in Mpumalanga, the place of the rising sun. And you've said you've always loved giraffe, but Wild Earth has taught you to love many, many other species too. Good. That is exactly what we want to hear. Most people know about these beautiful, iconic animals, the lions, the elephants, the giraffes, the zebras, but there are so many more amazing things out here. And say, who knew that barramundis, well, maybe some of you did, but I certainly didn't know that barramundis change sex as they get older. Nature is full of wonderful and weird things. And the more you learn, the more you're amazed by it. I went for a walk on the estate where I am the other day, and I don't know if I've ever seen so many butterflies. I'm having a bit of a butterfly kick at the moment. It was like walking through some sort of Alice in Wonderland Disney movie. There were butterflies of multiple different species, many of which I couldn't identify. Just all around, loads of brown vein whites, loads of monarchs or monarchs mating, various different Acrea species. At one point, I saw I'm not sure what plant it was, but a plant that had six citrus swallowtails, which are beautiful butterflies, all alighted upon it. So lots and lots of butterfly activity at the moment, which is lovely to see. And at the other end of the spectrum, what a magnificent bull elephant this is. Huge head, beautiful tusks, looking particularly shiny and white, that one on the left. He's obviously been flossing or polishing his tusks. Beautifully even they are in terms of length. You can see it looks like he just favors the left tusk more than the right. There is a little notch out of there where he has been breaking branches, snapping branches and twigs and things over it for many, many years. not the thickest of tusks, but very well proportioned. Right, Picasso, back to your question about giraffe sex ratios and the possibilities of them being a bit skewed. My initial research has shown that in captive populations like zoos, there does seem to be a little bit of a skew towards the males. About 62% of giraffe born in captivity seem to be males. I'm not sure why that would be the case. Um, and in wild populations where there is quite a lot of poaching, they do tend to be slightly skewed towards females, which I suppose would make sense because the males are more likely to be poached. They're bigger and more impressive depending on what they are used for. And then also that in more open vegetation areas like this in East Africa, you tend to get slightly skewed towards females, whereas in tall vegetation and heavier vegetation, more skewed towards males, which I suppose again makes sense due to the males being taller and being able to reach the higher food sources. CD's been, yes, you're saying it sounds lovely. I was also just keeping quiet and enjoying the splashing there. So it's only of late it seems that I'm managing to pick up proper ambient sound that you also get. Normally I just sort of see pictures. So it's lovely to have the sound and all the associated sensory information that comes with it. Jan Mello, you're saying this is warming you up. I assume therefore it is relatively cool where you are. It's actually quite a nice overcast day today, rather humid. We have got hopefully, some rain coming in over the next week or so. Doesn't look like there's going to be a huge amount of it in the low felt, but we are expecting some, which would be a welcome relief. We haven't had any rain really for the best part of a month, and I noticed yesterday a lot of the grass is beginning to dry out and beginning to sort of brown off a little bit. So a little towards the end of the season, shower or 10 would probably go down very well. It's still warm enough, I would say, though, that I'm unashamedly sitting here with my aircon on. I look forward to winter. I may have been here for 20 years, but that English blood, I don't think, has ever properly climatized to the South African heat, and particularly the low felt heat. I had a friend actually came up from, I think he came up from Nelspruit, but was really struggling. It was about 39 the other day, and pointed out to him this was a nice mild summer's day for us up here. Melanie, you're asking whether these types of cameras are used to study animals and their behavior. Absolutely, yes. The beauty of this is we are seeing these animals doing completely natural activities. Yes, there are places that you can go and the animals pretty much ignore your presence. They've become incredibly habituated to humans and vehicles. But there is always a part of me that wonders, are they putting on a bit of a show? Has their habituation process changed their otherwise what would have been completely wild behavior? I don't think so by much, but this allows us a unique window into the lives and the behaviors of these animals with absolutely no other variables around, right, apart from the fact that this is a man-made environment slightly where they are coming to, and there may be some people milling around in the background. But there are people who monitor these cameras pretty much 24 hours a day, and we do get to see some amazing things and some unusual behaviors that you don't necessarily read about in the books. And when it comes to research, you need a big sample size and you need as much data as possible. So these are very, very handy in conjunction with everything else that we have these days with satellite tagging, uh, drone footage, infrared cameras, uh, infrasonic microphones. We have a wealth of opportunity to really get into these animals' lives in a completely unobtrusive manner, and we're still trying to figure out communication and behavioral patterns. Pretty amazing if you think we went to the moon, was it nearly 70 years ago now, or whatever it was, and we still don't know how animals communicate with one another, and we're still finding out interesting things and discovering new species. So much to be learned. 55, 54 years ago we landed on the moon. I should really know that. Apologies. Okay, so you're saying in the Sabi Sands you seem to see mostly males rather than females, going back to your giraffe sex ratio comment a little bit earlier. Um, yeah, I suppose I wouldn't be inclined to disagree with you there. I've spent many, many hours driving around the Sabi Sands, and you do tend to find probably more males than females, although it might be slightly skewed because you tend to bump into individual males quite regularly, whereas when you do find females, they're usually in small groups. But it may have something to do with that, the type of vegetation. Remember, a lot of the Sabi Sands, Timbavati, Klasiri, all of these private reserves are ultimately reclaimed farmland that have been overgrazed in the past, have led to a more woody, um, vegetation type, which might suit males and their ability to reach higher up food, as discussed. But an interesting observation. I'm actually going into the park next weekend, and I shall be going into towards Satara, which is quite open. So I will make a note to see whether I see perhaps more females than males in those more open areas with smaller vegetation. Ah, Lenny, you're saying one ton. The famous elephant one ton was here a few hours ago. I still haven't seen this elephant, so I very much hope that he comes back. I'm just having a quick look at pictures of him online so that I might be able to recognize him. Much longer left tusk than right tusk, and a very impressive tusk at that. Must be a couple of meters long, that left tusk. Well, let's hope he graces us with an appearance. That'd be a pretty wonderful thing to see on a Sunday afternoon. Right, well, we'll definitely keep an eye out in case one ton is still in the area. It would be lovely to see him. But I think let's stay in Kenya and head over to Lentore. I believe we have some baboons, which are always highly entertaining to watch. Nice little bit of grooming going on. Very important for social bonding. Always important to have the parts that are more difficult to reach groomed as well. Bless you. It rather epitomizes why we enjoy watching baboons. There is something very human about their antics, and to hear them sneeze like that. Jan Miller, I'm glad you're enjoying the baboons, olive baboons, up here in Kenya that we're looking at. And Deb Davis, you're saying they're entertaining but not your favourite mammals. Oh, I'm sorry about that, Deb Davis. But as you said, very entertaining to watch. You can watch them for ages, always doing something. You can always relate to something that they're up to. Nice to see a rogue male impala wandering past there. Of course, down here in southern Africa with the Chacma baboons, I don't know whether the same relationship exists between the olive baboons, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. They have that symbiotic relationship where you often find baboons and impalas together, feeding in a tree and underneath the same tree. More eyes, more ears, looking out for potential danger. Quite sure what they're all feeding on. Some sort of fruit. They're just getting rid of a bit of skin. Some quite impressive males in this group, though. I think it also helps they have that sort of slightly shaggier hair than the baboons that we have down here, so it makes them look a little bit more robust and I suppose one could say menacing. This male looks very content there. It's a good activity for a Sunday afternoon. Hang out by the pool, have a little bit of a groom, bit of a massage. All these different vocalizations we can hear in the background. Of course, they have a huge repertoire. I'm not even going to attempt to try and tell you what I think they're saying to one another. But again, there's so much going on, a full language of baboon that is just beyond our realms of possibility. I look forward one day to point we can make some sort of machine that we can point at these animals and have a baboon translator and an elephant translator and a lion translator. That would really be rather fascinating. A romantic dinner for two over here, gazing lovingly at each other, dribbling food out of their mouths. Nina Brown, you're asking how baboons relate with other species and whether they are as protective of something like elephants. Um, Difficult question to answer, Nina, to be honest. They will certainly defend their own against predators, certainly. Baboons are well known to mob leopards and other predators. They'll get together as a group and try and chase the danger away. Um, but I don't think I've ever seen or heard many stories of, say, a troop of baboons like this who are enjoying a waterhole. If an impala or a nyala or giraffe came to drink, I don't think they would chase them away or really be too bothered at all. They'll probably look after their young ones, make sure nobody gets up to any mischief. But I don't think they have a particular Uh, they're not particularly defensive. This one lying down. Defensive over the waterhole, for example, like elephants are. It's a very relaxed baboon, I think it's fair to say. Enjoying his spa treatment. This baboon now is really enjoying life. Completely all four limbs spread. It's a very trusting pose. Could say very important for social relationships. And interesting to see um, quite a lot of the things that are being pulled out of there are also being fed on. Ticks, mites, fleas, debris, dead skin. Who knows what she's finding in there? But I think the larger things like ticks probably being ingested. It is a small little injection of protein, but protein nonetheless. Lovely to see those fingers as well. We see a lot of baboon tracks, but it's not often that we get to actually sort of examine their digits so close up. So particularly those front feet, you see the hand on the ground, you can see the fingers, and then that almost line of the front of the palm. The rest of the hand is held above the ground, so we generally just see the line of those four fingers, those little bulbous toes, and that slightly lobed effect of that front part of the palm kind of makes a sort of a B shape. Whereas the vervet monkey, if we ever get a chance to have a look at one of their tracks, they have more of a V shape palm than the B shape. So V for vervet, B for baboon. Much skinnier fingers in a vervet monkey, but still those big sort of bulbous fingertips, but more so in a vervet. So those are the things that you look for. And many a baboon track has been mistaken for a leopard track at first glance as well. I think we spend so long trying to look for leopard tracks that we often see what isn't actually there. And just those sort of digits, the pads of the base of the fingers, and that back pad of the on the palm does look at first glance like it could be a leopard track, and we tend to forget to look for the thumb and the rest of the heel, particularly on the back toe. Something that I learnt quite early on, and in my time doing training as well, I had many a student who would stop and tell us all about a leopard track when we were looking at a baboon track. But I always found best to just let them get on with it and then point it out at the end, and then they won't make that mistake again, hopefully. Actually heard from one of my ex-students the other day, who I know is an avid Wild Earth fan, so I won't mention names for privacy, but she pointed out something that happened on her very first drive that she ever took. And I was with her, the rest of the students she was driving, and we left the gate and we drove maybe 100 meters down the road, and unbeknown to her, she ran over a millipede. And I thought it was a good chance to make a point here, so I made her stop the car. She didn't know why. Got out of the car, we walked back to the millipede, and I made her apologise to the millipede. And I actually saw her the other day, or we caught up online for the first time in many years, and she reminded me of this incident, and that thanks to that, many dung beetles, millipedes, and other small things have been saved because she's never forgotten that incident. Made me feel a little bit guilty, but also quite proud that I've saved multiple arthropods on the roads. Harriet Hodgkin, you're thoroughly enjoying the baboons. Yes, almost human-like behaviour, as you said. Always very, very interesting to watch. I think we can all empathise with baboons. Joanne Mello, a good question. You're asking why do baboons have that kink in their tail, that sort of hooked feature? Um, I can't give you an answer, and nor have I ever read or come up with my own theory as to why that would be beneficial. I don't know. It's just a genetic thing that baboons have that's been passed down. There must be some form of use for it. The only thing I could maybe think of, this just popped into my head now, in fairness, I haven't thought about it for years, is that maybe from a female perspective, it might make it more obvious to see their backsides, which is how they advertise their sexual status, and that when they are in their estrous cycle and everything swells up and goes red to attract the attention of a male, possibly by having that tail sort of held up above it, just makes it a more obvious statement, a more obvious thing to look at. But I certainly don't see how it would help, particularly with balance. I don't believe they use it particularly with communication as such. So I don't know, Joanne Mello. Joanne Mello, a good question, one to which I do not have the answer. Spa time's over. Not sure what happened to make them move off so quickly. This one seems unperturbed. Well, that was lovely to spend some time with some baboons. Sounds like we're going to head south a little bit down towards Botswana and go to Elephant Pan. Oh, look. Hello, little one. What a little cutie, hey? Struggling to control that trunk properly. Go on, get it in the water. Got to get the tip in. Go on. It looks like it got folded up and can't get it out. There we go. Are you having a scratch, or have you just got stranded on the log? Yeah, I'll go the other way. Very cute. Probably around about 3 months old, I would say, 3 or 4 months. But Elephant Pan is beautiful at the moment. All these trees just growing out of the water like that, or at least being surrounded by the water, make for some lovely photographs. Lady Macbeth, I'm glad you're enjoying the teeny calf. It is indeed teeny tiny and exceptionally cute. Oh, Sticking very close to mum. Maybe sticking in mum's shadow, which is probably a good idea. I know it's been very hot in Botswana over the last few days. And you can see by the position as a shadow, sun very, very high in the sky at the moment. Time for the little one to have a drink. But not much time. It's a mobile bar, this one. It keeps moving. Very complex elephant milk. Differs as the calf gets older and has different requirements. If you are raising elephants in captivity, it's important that if you are bottle feeding them, that the proportions of the different chemicals and proteins and other good things that are in there also change with the animal's age. Remember, elephants will suckle for at least 18 months, maybe even more in some circumstances. And the milk that is given to or produced by mum for a newborn is very different in terms of what is contained within it to a yearling and even older calves as well. Plenty of calcium required for those bones. Ladybird Berthius, you're also commenting that the baby's sticking to mum's side. Well, that is where the food is, and that is where the protection is. So not surprising, but lovely to see, certainly. It's sometimes quite difficult to work out whose calf is who in elephants because of the bond between them, but when at least they are a bit more spread out like this, it becomes a little bit more obvious. Speaking of calcium in diets, I was reading this morning actually about there've been some studies done on rabbits to suggest that because rabbits, like all rodents, have or rodents, sorry, lagomorphs, they have their front teeth continuously grow. So as they're gnawing and eating on fibrous material, they're constantly being worn down and sort of powdered down, and little bits break off. And they've shown that rabbits actually will ingest that calcium. So they will swallow those little pieces of teeth that are broken, and that will be utilized by the body and go into continuously producing more tooth as well. If you're going to have teeth that grow for the entire time, you need to be able to restock on those raw materials. A little bit like elephants, really, with their teeth. So the top part, the exposed part of those molars, are probably swallowed. Some of them may fall out as they sort of crumble away with use. But as they're moving further back into the jaw, towards the front of the jaw, as the new teeth are pushing in from the back of the jaw, the roots are definitely reabsorbed into the body for future use as well. No point wasting it. Okay, well, what a treat it was to spend a little bit of time with that baby elephant. I think we're going to head back up to Oldonyo and see what's going on in Kenya. Ah, all our giraffe are back. Doing some neck yoga. Oh, we're going to have these two males on the right. Are they going to have a little box? You can see this one just sort of shuffling to the side. Yeah, just some gentle necking. Leopard lover, you say you'll be going to the Netherlands in a couple of weeks. Well, we wish you a wonderful trip. You're going to visit the Royal, I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation, so my apologies in advance, but the Royal Singer Planetarium on the Sonneberg Observatory. Well, that does sound like fun. Uh, as somebody who would very much enjoy that sort of thing, I hope you have a wonderful time. Been rather frustrating from an astronomical point of view of late. The clouds have been fairly rife. We've had lovely clear days, and then the evenings the clouds have rolled in a little bit. But I do have a project on the go from a photographic perspective at the moment. I am uh, collecting data. I'm trying to get up to 8 hours worth of 5-minute photographs of a beautiful area of sky, very faint. You can't see with the telescope, you need to photograph it. Something in the constellation of Orion, very close to Rigel, the brightest star, called the Witch Head Nebula, which is a little cloud of dust and gas up there, which does look very, very much like a witch's head, with a sort of a long nose and an extended chin. One that I haven't tried to photograph before, but I've had to put that one on hold at the moment because it's so bore everybody with the details. But I have a filter that can bring out the gas in certain types of nebula, but this one, the filter is no help. So I need to do it in dark skies. And with us approaching full moon now, I've sort of put that one on hold, which is fine. So it can be cloudy now if it really wants to be. But I'm looking forward to processing that image. That one will be a first for me. Leopard Lover, what's my favourite observatory I've visited? Well, I have to say I haven't visited very many, if I'm honest. Probably the most special experience I've had was last year, or probably at the end of 2023, when I was in New Zealand and I went to the Mount John Observatory on South Island in New Zealand at a place called Tekapo. It's run by the University of Canterbury. I only went during the daytime, so I didn't get to look or see anything in action, but I got to see some of the huge telescopes, meter diameter telescopes, a 2 meter telescope, and I got a one-on-one private tour with somebody who used to work there and is still involved in astronomical research. He's doing a project on NEOs at the moment, near Earth objects, so things that might crash into Earth. But that was very special to get a private tour of a proper observatory and see some of those hugely impressive telescopes that they've got there. Some of you may, of course, have seen in the news recently that there is talk of a an asteroid that has a one in, I think the latest statistics, a 1 in 46 chance of impacting with Earth in 2035, I think it is. But that still equates to only about a 2% chance of hitting. And the problem is it's going to disappear from view in something like 7 or 8 months' time. And then when it's visible again, a few more years will have passed. So we'll know a lot better then. But don't despair. It's not a dinosaur killing sized asteroid. I think it's around about 30 meters or so, the one that's been spotted, which could still do some serious damage. Chances are it would blow up in the atmosphere, much like one did. It's about the same size as the one that exploded over to Siberia in 1908, the Tunguska event. but will explode with the force of multiple atomic bombs, and potentially, if it happens over an inhabited area, could cause quite a lot of damage. So we will all be watching out carefully for that one, but no reason to be alarmed just yet. Well, thank you, Leopard Lover. I shall keep that one for later to go to the Perth Observatory. Yeah, I never went to Australia. I never quite got there despite spending 9 months in New Zealand or so. I never hopped across the Tasman. Save that for another trip. Nice to see a tolerant elephant sharing with the giraffe. Looking for the pipe. No, seems to be content with the standard dam water. Yes, but when I saw that news about that asteroid, it was only a couple of days ago I saw it, and the previous night I'd watched Don't Look Up, which is all about a comet heading towards Earth as well. So I thought that was a rather poignant portent, perhaps. Shiv, wow, you went to the observatory in Hawaii. Well, that's high on the list of many places that I'd like to get to. You said you'd never seen such incredible night skies. Well, I know the observatories there on Hawaii are very much a hub of astronomical research. So I'm sure that was pretty spectacular. It does sound like a great place to go. I've been fortunate enough to say to spend some time in some beautiful dark sky areas out in Namibia in the Sossusvlei area, and of course in the Oraki Mackenzie Dark Sky Reserve in New Zealand, where I was a couple of years ago. But yes, I'd love to get to Hawaii one day. Some serious telescopes up there. Catherine, hello, Catherine. So you were saying you were lucky to do some stargazing with me a few weeks ago. I remember it well. And yes, I hope when you return, we can do it again. We'll have to do it at a different time of year. Maybe if you come in the winter, we can look at some of the beautiful winter constellations, Scorpius and Sagittarius, and all the other ones. And there's so many interesting things to look at there. It's very much Milky Way season, loads of beautiful nebulae and star clusters to enjoy, and some great photographic opportunities. Sarah, no, I have never been to the Hertzmonceau Observatory in East Sussex. I can barely even say it. But no, I don't think I've visited any observatories. I think I went to the London Planetarium when I was younger, but my sort of interest in astronomy has very much multiplied over the last few years as I've been fortunate enough, after much saving, to actually get myself some proper equipment, and I'm really enjoying exploring all the beautiful objects that are up there hiding in plain sight. So maybe next time I get back to the UK, I will make a point of trying to get there, Sarah. And Mercedes Benz, I should go to the Griffiths Observatory in Los Angeles. Yes, I should. Apparently, I've got quite a big trip. forthcoming. You have to persuade other people that it's worth the expense to visit multiple observatories, but would have no problem with that. Quite a few Ellie's beginning to file in now, but still no sign of One Ton. I hope he does pop back. I would very much like to be able to say that I have seen him live. How cool is that to hear the skin on skin as they walked past each other? Yeah, if anyone is interested, I did post a couple of photos recently, one a couple of days ago of the Little Beehive cluster, which is a beautiful young group of stars very, very close to Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky in Canis Major. I also tried my hand at some planetary photography, which I haven't done for a very long time. Got a nice picture of Jupiter with its cloud bands and a great red spot visible as well. Amazing what one can do from the back garden with the right equipment. to hear one of the wood doves in the background. Again, I'm not sure exactly which ones they have up there in Kenya. Was lucky enough to get a tambourine dove the other day. Oh, how amazing is that sound? And just to see an elephant having a scratch on whatever is available. Well, I very much enjoyed watching that elephant have a bit of a scratch on the other one. It was fun to watch. It looks like these two young giraffes in the background are still having a little bit of a jostle there. Oh no, well they were. But beautiful scenes at Old Ronyo. Be nice to see some eland again. Actually, I haven't seen any eland for a while up there. A lot of elephant and giraffe over the last week or two. Not much in the way of antelopes. So I remember seeing huge herds of zebra here a little while ago as well. Oh, more giraffe keeping an eye on the elephant. Possibility of some gentle necking there. These are all youngsters. You can just tell by how fluffy those ossicones still are. So this is a very important part of their development, just building those muscles up in the neck, establishing dominance hierarchies amongst them for when the time comes that they may have some reproductive rights. But you can clearly see absolutely no malice in that at all. It's very much just social bonding more than anything else. But there'll be an undercurrent. So a bit of a triple threat match going on. It looks like it might be a water break. Now the elephants have moved off again. Daniela, good question. Why are they called ossicones and not horns? Because a horn officially is bone. It's fused to the skull. So if you've ever seen the skull of a horned animal, so something like a giraffe, not giraffe, of a buffalo or an impala or a kudu, they have the horn itself is bone attached to the skull, and then it has that keratin sheath over the top of it, like a veneer, like a covering, which you can pretty much sort of slide off once it loses some of its integrity. And they don't grow back if they're broken. It's like breaking a bone in your arm; it doesn't grow back. But giraffes do not have that keratin sheath, that keratin coating. So for them, it's bone with just skin over the top of the bone. So there is some blood supply up there. There's some blood vessels. It will bleed. Not much, just some capillaries more than anything else, but it is sort of living tissue over bone as opposed to that keratin sheath. But remember, when a giraffe is born, they are not completely bony protrusions. It's cartilage, which is another reason why we call them ossicones, because after a few years, normally sort of 2 to 3 years for females, 4 to 5 years for males, that cartilage then turns into bone. So the correct word would be it ossifies, coming from the Latin os, meaning bone. So that cartilage then becomes bone, and that is what we're left with now. So if you do see a giraffe skull, you will still see those protrusions sticking off the top of the head. So what you often see in males is some wonky ossicones, ones that are not particularly straight anymore, pointing out at a weird angle. And that happens during exchanges like we have just seen. Of course, there may be some genetic abnormalities as well. But when those youngsters do jostle and they do that sort of gentle necking to establish dominance and hierarchy, it just takes one slightly over enthusiastic blow or hitting at the wrong angle, and that cartilage, which hasn't yet solidified, might get bent and just change the shape slightly. And then when it does become bone, it's then sticking out at a funny angle. So ossicones and horns, two different things, of course, which is also different from an antler, which is more of a sort of living tissue that falls off each year and then grows back every year, and that very sort of velvety fur over the top of it. So we have nothing out here in Africa that has antlers, only horns, and in the case of the giraffe, ossicones. Oh, sorry, everybody. Looks like our screen froze up at Old Donya. That's a shame. I was hoping we were going to get a line of giraffes all drinking together, not something that you see every day. So it looks like we've come back down to Juma, I assume. We did have some elephants swimming in Juma Dam a little bit earlier, but you can see the grass beginning to turn. Definitely a brownish orange hue to what was only a few weeks ago. Lush greenery everywhere. Scanning slowly with this camera, not seeing anything, but I have no doubt there's plenty of things that we're missing. All right, it seems that our feeds elsewhere are back up and running, so let's head back up to Old Donya and see if those giraffes are still drinking. Well, looks like the boys are heading off. Going to leave this female to it. Must got the impression she was sort of skulking around, checking out some of the local talent pool. Was not particularly impressed by what she saw, and now she can enjoy a drink in peace. Dark Main Lover, you're saying you love giraffes, you love watching giraffes drink water. It is a strangely attractive thing, isn't it, to watch? It's awkward and ungainly, but beautiful in its own right. A very unique experience to watch a giraffe drink. And Penelope Kenyon, you're saying postcard perfect. I agree. It was, I think earlier, I think we ended up with 8 giraffe at the beginning of the show, which was very special to see. Dark Main Love, I think you're asking why giraffes are so nervous to drink if there are a group of them. Surely more eyes and ears would make them a little bit more confident. I think I would agree with you, but I think to some extent you can't quell that instinct and that nature to be um, dubious about your surroundings, to be very tentative. So I agree with you that I think having more there is a good thing, but I guess you always err on the side of caution. Just takes one mistake, and that might be the last mistake they make. Or maybe there's a lack of trust amongst giraffes, who knows? A lot of them keep getting distracted by something off there to the right. I'm not sure if there's a little bit of human movement perhaps over there. They don't look too perturbed, but you can see something keeps attracting their attention. Perhaps we don't know what's behind that sort of screen there. There might be some other animals moving around, and it just takes some movement in the peripheral vision. Will be enough to attract the giraffe's attention. Sarah, you're asking where is Old Onyo in relation to the Mara? Well, so I've not been up there myself, but from what I know it's in the Chulu Hills area, which is close to the Savo East and West Park. I'm just checking on the map for you. So it's basically southeast of Nairobi, whereas the Mara is west of Nairobi. So the Mara is much closer to Lake Victoria, whereas Oldonyo is actually sort of makes a triangle with Nairobi in Kenya and Arusha in Tanzania, but much closer to the coast than the Mara is. I'm not sure what the distance is between them, but definitely not a part of it. If anything, say more associated with the Savo area, and I know there are various. A lot of the water that runs off these hills ends up in the perennial rivers in and around Savo East and West National Park. But somewhere I would dearly love to get up to. There's a chance, I'm hoping nothing is set in stone yet, but there's a chance that I might be heading up to Tanzania in a few months' time, which I'm crossing my fingers for, towards the sort of Serengeti area. I did spend a year in Tanzania working at a lodge in Katavi National Park, but that's right down in the southwestern corner of Tanzania, very close to the Zambian border, close to the Selous and Ruaha, for those of you who know your national parks. But Katavi, not a very well-known park, but still a good 1,000,000 hectares or so, and only 4 tented camps in it. So proper remote and rural Africa. That was quite the adventure. Victor, you ask why their legs vibrate so much. I would imagine it's just to dislodge flies. You can see that front one's, or that the right-hand giraffe's front left leg was twitching again then. I think it's a bit like horses and zebras. When little insects land on them, they twitch the skin just to get rid of them. The same way we would brush away a fly that was landing on you because it's annoying. So more of just a muscular reaction to rid the skin of pesky little flies. Dark-maned lover, no, giraffe don't really make alarm calls as such. They are capable of vocalization under extreme stress. Not that I have ever heard it myself. So they're not like impalas or kudus or bushbuck that will give away the presence of a predator with some sort of audible cue, which can benefit other prey items because they've all sort of learned each other's alarm calls. If they hear it, they're all on high alert. It seems to translate fairly well through the animal kingdom. But giraffes do have their own way of helping us to find predators. They tend to stare. If you see a giraffe staring intently at something, it's always worth looking to see what it is. There will be something there. It may turn out to be an antelope or something. They've just seen the movement and they're not sure what it is. But if there's a predator present, then the giraffes will definitely be locked on and supremely focused on that particular area. So it's always a good idea if you see a giraffe really staring to get your binoculars out and have a good look. Possibly something sheltering in the grass or under a tree that the giraffe's keeping a very, very close eye on. So you can see, even though there's nothing too untoward, you can see that's a sort of a stare posture. The whole neck pointing towards whatever it is, ears forward, pointing in that direction, and just locked on to whatever it is that's attracted the giraffe's attention. Sarah, no, it is quite a small waterhole. I mean, I've also only ever seen it from this angle, but I don't think it's bigger than sort of 4 meters, maybe 5 meters tops from side to side. So it is a small waterhole, but it is pumped. There's a fed by a sort of a pipe which has a trickle of water just to keep it topped up. I have seen it bigger than this. You can kind of see off to the giraffe's right as we're, or right of screen as we're looking at it. You can kind of see almost a muddied line there. So the most water I've seen in here during the big rains in Kenya, it's probably about double this size. But about a month or two ago, it was very, very low. I think we were all getting a little bit worried, but it seems to have recovered and been at this sort of um, size for the last month or two. Mandy, which waterholes are on my bucket list? I assume you're referring to the Africam and other location cameras that we have here. Well, I think this one would probably be top of the list. There always seems to be a lot happening. And also the Lentore waterhole I'd love to go to. It just looks like such a peaceful oasis there with the big trees and beautiful birding. Always see some unusual things there on these cameras. Trying to think of any other ones. The Safari Hook one would be nice, or I've never been to Oldon Okukoyu either. I have done Namibia a few times, but never actually up into Etosha, Sossusvlei and Arindi, into Damaraland, but I've never actually gone to Etosha, so I suppose up there as well would be high on the list of priorities. But I think if you said I could only visit one, which one would it be? I think it probably would be this one. A constant stream of giraffe today. Keep hearing what sounds like an emerald spotted wood dove in the distance, but it sounds slightly different from ours. I've just been doing a quick check, and from a very quick check, it seems to be that we do get tambourine dove, laughing dove, emerald spotted wood dove, maybe red-eyed dove up there at Old Onyo. But it just seems to, it sort of starts out like our wood dove and then gets very, very quick towards the end, which I don't associate with our ones. Could just be a regional variation. My bird calls are a little bit rusty at the moment. Lady Macbeth, you're saying Tanzania is on your bucket list. I'm not surprised. It's actually a wonderful country. I really enjoyed just my time there. I was in a very, very remote, isolated area. The closest village was about a 2.5 hour drive away, where we had to go to the local market to get fresh produce. And we had this amazing sort of, I don't know really what you would call it, but a local fridge because we didn't have much in the way of power. We had a gas powered freezer, but the fridge was sort of a little outhouse that was kind of um, how would you describe it? Two fences of chicken wire with coal filled in between those chicken wires to make the walls with a thatched roof. And a few times a day, we just doused that coal with water, and the coal would absorb that moisture and actually cool that room. It was probably 7 or 8 degrees cooler than the surrounding, just the kitchen itself, certainly. A wonderful way of keeping things cool. Well, I think the chef only had two spider burners, gas spider burners. That was it. He had a local oven, which was basically an iron box that you put coals on to bake in. So they really did things old school at that camp, but the quality of the food that they produced was absolutely glorious. But it was really good fun actually going to the market. The people were very accommodating, very accepting. I had to learn how to sort of speak some Swahili whilst I was there. I had to learn all the names of fruits and vegetables, and particularly how to count, because you have to pay for everything, and keep notes of it all and record it when we got back. So that was quite the adventure. Also, getting water. We had no running water. I had to go and collect JoJo cans of water and bring back to the camp every now and again from the TANAPA head offices, the Tanzanian Parks Board. But that was a good hour and a half drive each way as well. So that was a proper exercise in remote African living whilst I was up there. And Catherine, you said you'd love to go back to Oldonyo or to Oldonyo and see one ton again after so many years. I assume that means you have seen him in the flesh. Lucky you. I'm sure he would be delighted to see you as well. Okay, I think it's time we had a bit of a change of scenery. We've just been speaking about some of my trips to Namibia, but never got up to Etosha. So let's go to the outskirts of Etosha to Safari Hooks Waterhole. I'm sure this looks a little greener than the last time I saw it. I don't know if they have had a little smattering of rain in the west. Oh, blah, blah, what's that? It's a black stork. Very nice. Had to search the memory banks for that one briefly. Very characteristic with that red beak and red legs. Oh, missed. He's got this whole waterhole to himself. I'm surprised in such a dry area there isn't more activity, but of course you never know with waterholes. But it's always a good technique, particularly during the dry season. Go and sit at a waterhole and wait for the animals to come to you. We used to do that in Tanzania quite often. But lovely to see a black stork. Don't see those very often. But let's head over to Madikwe and to Tower Lodge. Ah, lots of Ellies coming down for a drink. These ones on the right, absolutely caked in mud, having a good time down there. You see the elephants in the back beginning to get a little bit of a spring in their step, often the case as they're approaching water, struggling to hold back their excitement. Little one having a roll in the mud. Looks like a black-headed heron who's probably going to get chased off by one of these younger ones, I would think. One of the great sports of young male elephants, chasing other things. No, may have got away with it so far. I thought that was a cat in the background for a second. I was about to get very excited, but I think it's just an impala. Is it just an impala? It is a no, an impala. I have visions of a cheetah slinking out of the grass momentarily. It does look rather cheetah-like though when I look at it from here. Not so much now. Indeed, Dark Mane Lover, it's a good day for elephants in Madikwe. It's a good day for elephants most places this time of year. Plenty of water, plenty of mud, plenty of things to roll around in and get absolutely filthy. Good excuse for a scratch and a play, cooling down. I say these ones really going for it. There's not many square inches of skin not coated in mud. Greetings, Sandy Franklin. I'm glad you could join us. Saying good morning. I assume for yourselves. For us, it's very much afternoon. This are very much quarter past 2. Wow, quarter past 2. We only have 15 minutes left. I'm glad you could join us, even if it's only for the last 15 minutes. Things definitely changing all over the country. This is also looking a little bit more orange than it was a week or two ago. I'm not seeing any of those yellow flowers that were always, well, that have been very prominent in the background here at Tau for a while. and a seemingly ever-present huge gaggle of Egyptian geese, which seem to have taken up residence here at Tau. Looks like a red-billed teal in amongst them as well. And there is the nutrient cycle in full effect. I saw the youngster come over there. I'm not sure if he was just investigating or whether he did actually engage in a little bit of coprophagia there, a bit of eating of mum's dung for the bacteria enzymes and things. Poor Sarah, are there any areas of Africa that are overpopulated by elephants? That's a dangerous question because some people will tell you that everywhere is overpopulated by elephants. You could start with Kruger, certainly a lot of the parks up in Kenya as well, the Savos, the Ambacelis. But what is too many elephants? Such a difficult question to answer. I think there's about 27,000 elephants in the Kruger area at the moment, which many people say is too many. They do cause a lot of damage, certainly, um, but nature has a pretty good way of dealing with these problems. If there are too many elephants, then some elephants will die out and the numbers will stabilize. But I prefer not to look at it as an overpopulation of elephants, as rather an overpopulation of people, which means the elephants have less and less space in which to live their lives, and they're crammed into these little areas that are protected. And then, of course, there's going to be some overpopulation. But yeah, a bit of a contentious question. That one very much depends on who you ask and your particular feelings on the matter. I mean, nobody wants to see elephants suffer, but there are climatic changes. But ultimately, it's all to do with resource availability and how much space there is, how much food there is, how much water there is, and what the carrying capacity of a particular area is. And you can see this herd moving, and the big matriarch at the front, very wedge-shaped head, leading everybody to their next feeding ground. But ultimately, Sarah, we're going to get down to the to cull or not to cull debate again, which is a no-win situation for anyone trying to host that discussion. To be honest, it comes down to your personal preference. I personally am not a big fan of culling, not necessarily because I find it a cruel way. If it's done humanely, then I don't like the idea of it. But if it needs to be done, it can be done humanely. But humans like to have a quick result. We don't like to wait. Nature will fix itself. It's been doing it for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, but we like to see an immediate change. So we like to make things happen far more rapidly. One thing you could argue we have too many of, though, is Egyptian geese. Well, speaking of elephants, let's go to Elephant Pan in Botswana. But yeah, it's a difficult question, Sarah. To be honest, you're going to find people with very strong opinions on both sides of the fence. I think I'll elaborate on my answer before. I think if it's a massive open system, I personally think we should let nature take its course to some extent. But in these small private reserves, where the migrations of those animals are very much limited, then some responsibility does fall on the landowners and the reserve management to control that population. Unfortunately, it is inevitable because the more members there are of your ecosystem, be they big or small, the more stable it is. So a bigger area is by nature more stable, and in a smaller area, then if that balance is upset, even if only slightly, it can have quite a detrimental knock-on effect to everything else. So I think size of the area comes into play to some extent, so as well as the geology of the area, which will, as many of you know, will dictate the vegetation, the availability of water. There's natural underground aquifers and reservoirs for elephants to utilize to be able to dig up in riverbeds with dikes, which are those vertical intrusions of rock that cause sort of pooling of underground water at certain spots. And then climate change and general heat and drought and all of these things play a significant role. There are also plenty of elephants in Botswana, that's for sure. Botswana has the most elephants of any of the African countries. I think somewhere in the region, somewhere between 120 to 150,000 elephants in Botswana alone. What are you smelling, boy? I love it when they do that. So those periscopes come up. You often see it on a There must be something in the vicinity. Often see it on a walk if you're watching elephants from maybe, 80 meters or so. You've got a nice safe area, the wind is in your favor, and suddenly the wind changes. Within seconds, you see all those elephants' trunks go up as they try and hone in on your position. It looks like they both got a whiff of something. I wonder if we'll see anything approaching. More elephants, maybe? Could it be a musting bull or a female in estrus? Or just a hint of something on the wind? Interesting to see the height of those mopani sort of increasing with distance away from the water. See the ones close to the water have obviously been fed on profusely and have become a little bit stunted in their growth. You see they get taller and taller as you get further away from the water. Looks like there might be some more elephants loitering at the back there. Yes, lots. But we are almost out of time, unfortunately. We've only got about a minute left. So I hope you've all enjoyed today and you go on to enjoy a wonderfully relaxing and prosperous Sunday. Maybe some of you is going to settle down to a Sunday roast. I do miss those. Mum's Sunday dinners are always the best. But Dark Main Lover, I'm glad you've enjoyed the sightings today. Beautiful giraffe, I think, which stole the show up at Oldonio today. Nice to see a black stork over at Safari Hook. Penelope Kenyon, I'm glad you've also enjoyed. Yes, but it's been a very relaxing, slow-paced Sunday afternoon live at the Waterhole. But please go on to enjoy the rest of your day. I'll be back again tomorrow, 12:30 Central African time, for another 2-hour odyssey across our cameras. But thanks for joining us. Thanks for your questions, and have a wonderful Sunday.